and welcome to the Quincy Access Television Studios. I'm Mark Crosby. Thank you for joining us for In Your Neighborhood, a look at the various wards throughout the city. Today we will be visiting Ward 5, and as our guide we have Chuck Phelan, the Ward 5 City Councilor. Chuck, welcome back to QATV.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
It's always great to have you, and of course it's always great to have these updates throughout the city and focus on various wards. There's always a lot going on. There's always a lot we can talk about. We only have a half an hour, but fortunately you can come back, and I know you will.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We are going to begin. This is a bit of a show and tell. If folks don't know, you will be seeing a video of some of what we talk about today, actually most of what we talk about today. And we are going to start in Wollaston Center. Give us an update.
Planning Department is currently coming up with the overlay district for Wollaston Center. It's right now in the planning. There are some very big open spaces there that need to be taken care of. Although I will not be participating in the actual vote on the overlay because I own a business in Wollaston Center. But individual projects I can get involved in, and obviously will as a ward councilor and notify everyone and let them know what's going on. But right now they're coming up with a whole overlay for the district. It's going to be changes in zoning. There are a couple of big parcels there that are in play right now. The old Wollaston Theater, which is completely torn down, that's one. The original plan that came in was looking for an 8-story building with not a lot of parking and there's a lot of problems with that project. And it basically was pretty much shot down. The developer turned it around. I think people right now are waiting for what happens with the final zoning overlay, what comes from the city. And that's going to take into consideration all that has gone on in the various neighborhood meetings that have been held. There hasn't been any in a while, so I'm going to encourage the planning department to do another one before they release it. But they've taken all the input that's been given to them and put it in there. What I don't want to see is a project go in that does not fit with the neighborhood, that is overbuilt, trying to put too much in too small an area.
And that's the area we're looking at right now. And we'll see it from the other side. And I guess, unfortunately, it's being used as a parking lot.
Sometimes it does. I know the parking control officers will go around there and ticket people in there to try to discourage that. I know sometimes, one time there was limousines there, and the parking control officers have been told to go around and ticket if they see, because you don't want that happens. It's kind of an area that really needs some attention. And my understanding that the planning board will be coming in with planning department will be coming in with all the recommendations probably before the end of the year. There's also a parcel from Cushing Street down to Chapman Street that has been purchased. There are still some storefronts active in there, like the restaurant on the corner is still very active, the sushi restaurant. But eventually they want to do a development there, and they're looking to do it at a 6-story building with but having enough parking. They also own several of the multifamilies behind it. But my thing on any of these coming in is that they get input from the neighborhood, that they work with the neighborhood, because unlike Quincy Square, where you had these vast areas where there's no one living, now it's very different with Quincy Square because there are a large population now living down the square. Wollaston Center, you only have to go not even 50 yards either way, and you're into a neighborhood. So that has to be part of any of the planning on that has to be taken into consideration, whatever's built there.
I do remember when the planning department, and I say planning, but it's actually community development.
Development, yes.
When they were presenting before the council, they did reference an area, a low-lying area that still gets water. It's kind of around the area that CVS is in.
CVS and Wollaston Line, yeah. There's an area that there was, as a young kid, I mean, I guess I'm old enough, I remember where 80 Clay Street was a marsh. I used to go there and catch frogs and minnows and stuff like that, so I remember the area very well.
And let them go, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Catch and release.
We always caught and release, because if I ever brought them home, my mother was very mad at me. So I would have to bring them back afterwards. But yeah, that area was underwater. There was a parking lot where 80 Clay Street is, and so a lot of those systems were put underground, and they need anything that's going to be built there is going to need to address the water conditions there, and that's part of it.
And we should mention across the way, kind of diagonally across the way, is the Wollaston T Station. There was
Right.
quite a bit of work that needed to be done there because that used to flood.
There was actually a brook running underneath that. I believe it was, I'm not sure if it was Sachem Brook, but there was a brook running under there. I can remember when the T was being built, pedaling over to Coke Club over in Montclair Field, and there was a little stream running by that you would run. So those things are there, and they have to be dealt with. Like they couldn't put a handicapped access into Wollaston Center, into Wollaston T Station until they addressed the flooding.
We are going to look at another area not too far from the center if you are heading down toward Quincy Shore Drive, and that's the Beachcomber site. That was going to be a development that has now changed. It's going to be a passive park.
Yes, I had a meeting in August with the neighbors down there. We introduced the passive park that we're looking to put in there. It's going to have some benches, some plantings, but we're going to keep it open and wide open. It's going to serve two purposes. One purpose is a purpose of, I think we have a beautiful resource along Wollaston Beach, and to put open space along Wollaston Beach in places that the public can enjoy, I think is a great thing to add on. Also, there is it's a very flood-prone area, and to have put a four-story building there and paved it over with parking spaces for almost 100 cars, I think would have been a disaster. You can't always catch the water from the sea. It's endless.
Right.
So two things that happened was by regrading this land, by making it, we can actually use it for storm retention and things like that. Another thing right behind it on the Strand was we also had an open house for a new pump station that was put there for pumping seawater and drainage in the area, because it actually is a very low-lying area, and some of it is simply if you get a large rain event. And then where you really have problems if you get a large rain event and then you have an astronomical high tide, because there are actually pipes going out into Wollaston Beach under there. And when an astronomical high tide, it can pop. I've seen it pop the sewer covers there, and literally water is pouring out and gushing into the neighborhood. So the new pump station, and we had an event right after we had turned it online where we had over 3 inches of rain.
So it was tested.
It was tested, and from what I heard from the neighbors, it passed its first test. It actually did what it was supposed to do. And I think using that in conjunction with taking this land, regrading this land, and actually making it for flood detention helps everyone in that area. And also one of the things, by doing a passive park, it's going to take a little while because we have to go through the same permitting the developer went through with the state, with the EPA, because we're right on a coastal zone area. So there's a lot of things, but I don't foresee problems with that because we're turning something into a passive park, we're turning it into flood retention. All the things they were talking about at the last development when I attended the first meeting on the day of my inauguration, that they were saying should be done with the site is what we're going to be doing. So I don't foresee, but we still have to go through the permitting processes. So I would have liked it to have gone a lot faster, but I think we're looking at the early spring next year before we can start doing work to regrade the surface and actually make it so it's more level, kind of bringing it up so everyone can see and putting the improvements in. One of the things is to have a trail going right through the middle of the park, some plantings and some other things that will accentuate a beautiful place right on Quincy Shore Drive.
I was going to say, what constitutes a passive park? A walkway, maybe benches?
Really about that. I think we don't want to get into having this as a place where it's a hangout or anything like that. I think by keeping the area open and at street level, that will help for that, and putting some park benches so people can enjoy it, I think will help. And it will, if you look down, there's the Don Kent Park, there's the Riley Park right down the street. All of those have worked because they're open. They're open and people can enjoy it, and you got a wonderful view of the ocean right there, the Boston skyline. And I think that's what we're looking to do. And meeting with the neighbors, they don't want an active park there. They want something that people can just enjoy, kids could kick a soccer ball through there. You know, I don't know if playing baseball, we paid in a lot of.
You could kick a
If you
soccer
play
ball
so-
through there,
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't. I could hit a baseball, but I couldn't hit a soccer. I was never
Yeah,
a soccer player.
That's me too.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how well I hit a baseball either, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Talk about, before we leave Quincy Shore Drive, it has been up before the council recently, and it is in regard to truck traffic, commercial traffic.
Right. One of the things that has become very apparent, not just on Quincy Shore Drive, but Sutton, Furnace Brook Parkway, and a lot of them bisect both of those roadways. Not only hit my ward, there's probably 3 ward councilors along the route. And one of the things we put in was about restricting commercial traffic, which is what the law is right now, has been the law going back to the times when these roadways were built. They were never meant for big trailer trucks. They were never meant for huge delivery trucks to be coming down. And what has happened is you'll see tractor trailer trucks, you'll see everything. And these roadways were constructed back maybe 70 years ago, and they were never constructed to carry this type of traffic. It was meant for basically, you know, regular traffic. I mean, now it's not just cars, it's SUVs, it's different things like that, but that's the personal cars, you know, your regular cars that people rent. That's what these roadways, they were never meant for big tractor trailers. We have situations where right off of Furnace Brook Parkway, big huge trailer trucks cut into the neighborhood. They figure it's a way to beat the light at Newport and Furnace Brook Parkway. So what we've done is they're banned from commercial traffic, but they end up coming down. And well, the street was never meant for a tractor trailer truck, and all of a sudden you've got all these cars around, and the trucks get stuck. And then they're trying to back up. They're trying to do everything. They're not even so. They should. First of all, they shouldn't even be on Furnace Brook Parkway. They shouldn't be on Quincy Shore Drive, but they end up. And you know, I get it that people have to do business, but these roadways were never meant for that. And I think with the waves and stuff like that, and I'll give credit to the Mass State Police. They have contacted the city. They say we are going to step up enforcement, and they've let us know that they are enforcing this vigorously. And I think it's an issue of pedestrian safety. It's also an issue of these roadways were never meant for them to be on it. And I think the council took a stand, working with our state delegation and the state police. They seem to be, I saw at least 5 cars pulled over on Quincy Shore Drive just in the last, where then they were large trailer trucks, which don't belong there.
We should mention, you did mention the state police, and that is because the boulevard is state-owned.
Is DCR.
Correct.
Is owned by the state, run by DCR. And I used to be the MDC at one time when we were growing up, but now it's DCR and you know, they have to be. There was a problem with the streetlights not being on.
Right.
And
Councilor
Councilor Harris
Harris
addressed that, and I was more than happy to vote for that, because not only on Quincy Shore Drive, but on Furnace Brook, there's been a lack of maintenance, and that's what we're looking from them, and that's something that's going to our state representatives and DCR to say this is a problem too, because you know, late at night we're coming to a part of the year where the daylight is less and less, and people use the beach all the time. They use Furnace Brook Parkway as a main artery through, and if these lights are not on, they're not. It's creating a dangerous condition.
We are now headed to Hospital Hill. Now a development, or will be a development. Folks will see some video of the site being cleared. Everything but the main hospital building, the original hospital building. Talk about that and what folks will expect to see, and maybe a timeline from, we should mention this is being developed by Fox Rock.
It's being developed by Fox Rock. I think, you know, I initially spoke in opposition to this as a candidate running for office at the time. And I spoke in opposition because I thought it was too big. I thought it was, you know, it didn't fit into the neighborhood, but they did win the thing and get it passed. So one of the things I tried to do is set up a community group with the Hospital Hill Association. We've been working with Fox Rock. I think one of the things is there has been a couple of problems, and we have to address them, and we've been working with Fox Rock to address them. But I think sometimes it's a big development right in the middle of a neighborhood. And there are some problems with jackhammering, people starting too easy. One of the things I've tried to do as a ward councilor is make sure people are involved in what's going on up there, and also make sure the Fox Rock is doing what they promised to do. Because I think sometimes that becomes a problem, because all of a sudden they say, oh, we want to change this. And no, you have a permit to do it this way, and that's what that's what you have to do. So I think one of the things now is making sure that they do what they said they were going to do. And they have set up a thing where they get notices out to the neighborhood, and we have had several meetings with the neighborhood group up there and Fox Rock. But I think there's always going to be tension, because it's a big development and it's big. They have responded. Like, we've had problems sometimes. A neighbor called me about rats, and they immediately had their rodent control people put on it right away. So they have been working, but the neighbors are going through some stressful times. I mean, this is no question. And I think the biggest thing I can do as a Ward 5 councilor is hold them to what they've agreed to do.
And has the timeline changed as to when this development would be completed?
No, I think they're still on the same timeline. And the original hospital building is going to be used as a welcome center and stuff like that, so they are keeping that building. I think I made a mistake last time where I said, I had looked at so many different plans that...
and you got some phone calls as a result.
People called me up and reminded me, no, that's not going, and they were right. And I give credit to the neighbors up there, because they really care about their neighborhood. And people say, oh, they're just negative, they're fighting all the time. But it's because they care about the neighborhood, and they care about the children, they care about the safety of the people in the area. And when cases are like that, I never mind working with them. I'd rather have some people with passion about what's going on in the neighborhood than none at all.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what you see with a lot of the people who are involved up there. You know, I think when it is done, it will help the property values up there, but I do think that the Fox Rock still is, it can't be that we're just buddies and friendly. We have to make sure that they do what they promised they said they would do.
Well, up before the council, actually at the last meeting, was the parcel that they own on the parking way, and there is some footage that folks will see. It basically is adjacent to the General's Bridge. Talk about that, and talk about maybe what was considered lack of movement on that parcel.
Yeah, I think they received basically, which gives them an advantage in building this property almost 5 years ago, and nothing's happened. Now they've come in with a rather large building, and it's a little different than what they originally told the city council was going to be. I was not on the council at the time, but now they're coming in with plans to do, and they've kind of changed. And it's not that they're telling the council, they're letting like media all us know what we're going to be doing, which that's not the way you negotiate with people. If you made promises and commitments, you're going to do something, do it. I mean, and I think sometimes one of the things one of the reasons I ran for city council is I wanted to protect neighborhoods, and I've also seen that through the times, developers coming up with this plan, and then you look at the plan after it's done, it's nothing like the drawings or anything they did. And I think we have to hold people to the fire. And I commend Councilor Palmucci for bringing in the resolve, and I voted for it because I think they have to be accountable to the people. Anybody has to be accountable to the neighborhood. And there's a neighborhood there. You know, years ago there wasn't a neighborhood, but there's a whole condo association right there in the old Woolworth sites, the Cliven Street development, which is a beautiful development, by the way. They did a nice job, but people live there. And when you're going to be throwing this up, throwing that up, you got to realize that people live. One of our visions of the downtown was that we had an active, vibrant community living downtown. Now we've started to see that come to fruition. So when we are doing these buildings, that has to be taken into consideration.
And how has the planned development changed? We should mention that I believe, is this the area where the hotel and residential units would be?
They were talking about some workforce housing originally. They had always been talking about the medical building. The medical building is not a surprise. That, you know, when the council, this was again before my time, but I watched all these things and listened to all of them. One of the things that happened was there was, with the closing down of like the emergency room and stuff like that, there were possibly going to be things like urgent care, different things that would help replace some of the functions that were done at the hospital. And I think that's what we were expecting mainly to go down there. But obviously with the economic times and things have happened differently. So some of it hasn't happened, and people kind of want to know why. And I think it's important for Fox Rock to come before us and explain, where they're at with this, and let the public know what's going on. Because I think before we pass this, we should have all those answers.
There's a couple more topics. One, I believe we have video for. The other, I'm not sure. But Butler's Pond is undergoing a rehab, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kind of going in and doing dredging there. I'm hoping to see that works well, because we want to go do the same thing to Sailor's Pond. I think we have these 2 ponds that are in the area that I think are great resources for those neighbors. And Butler Pond, I only have part of. The rest is in Ward 1. So I share it with Councilor McCarthy. I'm sorry. Yeah, how could I forget that one?
He's coming in later today.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell him that.
And that's kind of we want to see that happen. And I want to see the same thing happen at Sailor's Pond, which is also part of Ward 5. So that we start putting some resources and we start to fix these up. Because I think that not only are they great storm retention for the area, that's one thing that everyone should realize is this is a place that helps handle a lot of our runoff and things like that. And a healthy pond, if you have a healthy pond, you have things in there that are eating the mosquito larvae and different things that would be a healthy pond is always better than not a healthy pond, I guess is what I would be saying.
Absolutely. And we should mention that the turtles that were residents of that pond have been temporarily moved out while the dredging happens, and then will be placed back in the pond once that has been completed. Well, Chuck, to end a program with goats is fitting. I don't know why that is, but that's what we're going to do today. We have goats in your neighborhood.
They were very popular when they were there. Even my wife had to go out and see them. And they were good because I think they used to use like herbicides and stuff like that to kill these invasive plants.
So we're talking about the safety and ecology of an area.
And having the goats, it actually did a lot to kill. One of the things goats love, which I never realized, is poison ivy. And it cleared a lot of the entrance out. I would have liked to seen it go more. I think they did a great job on what they did. They cleaned out a lot of invasive species. But those can be coming back, and I would like to see us use the goats more because it's an environmentally friendly way to do it. We're not using herbicides that could damage a very sensitive salt marsh, which is right there. So I think but I think we need to do some work on the trails going out there, because one of the things that has happened from the pandemic is more and more people are getting out into our parks and walking and seeing some of the really beautiful places we have in Quincy, and I think that the salt marsh around there is one of our real gems in Ward 5. And it's something that's enjoyed by everyone in the city. And I think it's great open space. And I think we should look at using the goats more, because and stop depending on herbicides, and they naturally will clean it out. And I think that's a much better thing for the environment.
And also, they do deal with Phragmites as well.
Phragmites, they eat Phragmites, which is an invasive species and can be a real problem. So I think it's great that we use them down there in Blacks Creek, and I applaud the Natural Resources Department for taking that initiative. But I would like to see us expand it even farther and start to bring them down. I think it's a great way, and it's an environmentally sensitive way, and it's effective.
As folks would notice in looking at that footage, they actually cleared out quite a bit, and at times they almost looked like they were done in that area. They had eaten a lot of the vegetation there, and there was that attraction that you talked about.
Oh yeah, people loved the kids from Beechwood Knoll School walking up there. Everyone was walking up to see the goats, and it was great. I'd like to consider, but I think it was a great initiative. I'd like to see more of it.
And we should mention that right now the city is renting the goats.
You rent the goats, and I think that's we're not we don't have the resources to take care of the goats and everything. But I think even I'm a golfer and I go around the golf courses.
That's right.
And you see them on all the golf courses.
Absolutely.
Because it's the same reason. They have an environment there. They don't want to disturb it, and using the goats is environmentally friendly and very. I think it's actually more effective than the herbicides because they eat right down to the root when they eat. And although it can come back, but I think it's an innovative way to look at taking care of some of these problems.
Well, Chuck, I want to thank you for stopping by and talking
My pleasure,
about
Mark.
Ward 5, and certainly welcome you back at a future date to give us updates.
I would love to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you at home for watching. You have been watching a program of Quincy Access Television. Please continue to watch QATV for more locally produced programming.